Okay, this is Adrian, and this is the second part of creating a native build. If you missed the first uh, part, it's part of YouTube, and we're picking off exactly where we left off. So right now I have a build of this app. I haven't changed anything. It says my company, the manifest. So the only difference is that for this demo, I switched the Corona code to be the Hello World demo app. And I'll show you what that looks like by going into the screenshot. And you see this is my device that I'm using today. I think it's a ZTE device tablet. And this is what the app looks like on the device. So what we're going to get into today is what if I have a few plugins. And I'm going to show you what the build settings currently look like for this app. I added two plugins. I added GBC language cabinet, which is my favorite language localization library, and it's a newer library, and that's why I picked it. And then I picked plugin Flurry Analytics, and that's a real jar plugin, like a real native Java plugin. And the reason why I picked this is because it's sort of straightforward what is required to integrate this. So let's get started, and I'll explain more about what I mean by easy to integrate. So the first step you need to do is that you need to download these plugins, and Corona has provided a script, and that script is located inside, inside the app Android folder. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you could, again, this is in the first video, and it's called download plugin .sh if you're on a Mac, and .bat if you're on Windows. And the way I do it on Mac, I don't know what the experience would be on Windows, is that I open up the bash shell, and then I grab the download plugin, and what the script will do is it will download the plugins that you have defined in the build settings, which is inside the Corona folder. Mac world, it goes into application support, Corona native, Android, and then there's the where the plugin is downloaded. I have a shortcut to application support, and so you'll see here under native plugins, there's an Android folder now, and there's the two plugin, the zip, the compressed file that comes down, and then the uncompressed folders. So let's start with the easier one, which will be the Candlelight folder, the Candlelight plugin, which is a pure NUA plugin. And if you go into here, NUA plugin, you will see that it's a plain NUA folder. Now, if you have multiple plugins, NUA plugins, you only need to have one plugin folder. So, and I'll explain that, and that will become more clear as I go along. So this is my project here, right? And I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call it plugin. And then I'm just going to copy that plugin file into this plugin folder that I created. Okay, and that's all you have to do for the newer plugins. Whatever gets downloaded, just copy and paste them into that plugin folder. Usually I copy the first one, if I have like 3 or 4 of these newer plugins, I copy the first one, and I copy the whole folder, and then the other ones, additional ones, I just copy and paste into the plugin folder. Now let's look what came down for the Flurry plugin. Now the jar, it came down with 2 jar in this file called metadata. So now if you look at the build file here for the app, you will notice that there's at the bottom here, it says dependencies, and you notice it says file tree directory libs and include anything that is a jar. So what we need to do is place those jars in this folder called libs. And I'm going to go into the Finder again, and I'm going to go into Development, Mobile Apps, Native Demo 2, Android, App. And right here, right before Source, I'm just going to create a new folder and name it Libs. Then I'm going to go back into Application Support. Corona, Native Plugins, Android, to Flurry, and I'm going to select these 2 Flurry jars. And I'm going to go back to my native app, my native demo Android app, libs, and I'm just going to paste them in there. Now, if you're lucky, sometimes in the documentation for the plugin, it tells you how to configure it for native build. Most of the time, it doesn't. At least that's been my experience. So some plugins are extremely complicated. You have to edit the manifest, include some files. So that's where it becomes tricky. But for the most part, to get an idea of what you have to do, you go back to that folder where it downloaded the plugin. Again, native plugins, Android, and Flurry. And you open up this metadata file. And for example, in this one, which is Flurry, it's telling you that it needs Android permission internet and access network state. If it needed used features, it would be in here. Sometimes it has activities that you have to add to the manifest file. But in this case, it just has internet and access network for the permission, and it has this dependency down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to access network state. I already know that internet is included in the base template. So I'm just going to do the permission that isn't included. And I'm coming in here into the Android manifest file, the template of the project. And I'm just and I'm adding the missing permission. And so for now, I'm going to skip that adds dependency. I don't think it's really required. Sometimes you can look example of other apps online and on GitHub where the particular item needs to be in this tree. But that's basically the process. You need to go in here and add all the items that that are in the manifest file. So what I did off camera is that I added the Flurry Analytics and the Language Cabinet plugin to the top of the main Lua file in the hopes that we could see it in the console log as they load. I'm not going to implement the plugins for this video. So we go back to Android Studio, and I'm going to run it, and there's probably going to be another cut because my machine takes forever to load. My machine takes forever to run this. And again, you see this is the ZTE cabinet that I'm using today. And it tells me the machine K88, and you see here that it loaded the Flurry plugin. And we could also take a screenshot. I could also show you a screenshot of my device. Now, the only other thing I want to mention is that if you go into other plugins and download, I moved all my plugins in here just because I wanted to make it clear. I could show you some other things you probably will have to do. Let's say if you were trying to integrate the personally plugin. You see you have to add this permission. You have to add this activity, application, child element activity. All this goes in the manifest. And then there's a dependency here. I can show you another example. I want to show you an example where there's you have to add additional activity. Usually the ad providers have that one signal might need it. Let's see. Oh yeah, one signal is great. You know, they need this permission. They also need a vibrate, wake clock, all this internet. And they have application child elements, a couple receivers, services, and they also have these dependencies on the bottom. Well, that's it. Hopefully this video is useful for some people, and hopefully it's clear how to set up plugins, both Java plugins like Flurry Analytics and Lua plugins like Language Cabinet.